What is up, people of YouTube? It's your boy Alan, back with another video. Today I find myself in a beautiful park in Taiwan I don't know the name of. But in today's video, I wanted to talk about what it was like working at a AI startup as a product marketing manager for a year and like 2 months until I got laid off. I think what I really enjoyed about working at an AI company was we're always on the cutting edge of what was happening in the industry. You know, in the tech world, all everybody does is talk about AI and the latest release, latest LLM, latest advancement, latest funding round, right? So I thought it was always really cool on a day-to-day or even week-by-week basis, right? The latest model or latest news drop would impact a part of our business and would impact how we would market the product or what kind of advances need to happen in the product for us to keep up in the market. So that was exciting because, you know, there's something new always happening in the industry, and what happens in the industry would affect our business, right? So if, you know, Claude released the latest model and it got significantly better at coding, you know, we would have to integrate that into our product for us to keep up in the industry. But there comes downsides with that, right? With such rapid innovation in that industry, our, you know, go-to-market teams would have to constantly adjust our messaging and positioning of our products, and then our product team would, you know, always have to balance like keeping up with the latest you know, models, right, and innovations into our product, because it changes on a weekly basis. So it'd be hard to juggle like, okay, we need to integrate the latest you know, Gemini model into our product, but hey, we're also working on this new product. So that would also really stretch our product teams thin, because they would really have to prioritize ruthlessly if, you know, like, oh, maybe we need to keep up with the latest trends in the industry, or let's stick to our defined roadmap and build out the certain product that we need, right? And then just for a little bit of context, right, I worked at an AI orchestration company. So our company created a very popular open source framework. And it basically helps companies build custom AI systems. We provide all the different components or building blocks an organization would need to build out their own AI system, so a company wouldn't have to build them from scratch. And, you know, we're not providing like an LLM or a model, right? We provide you the toolbox for you to build your own AI system. So that's a bit more context of like where I'm coming from. So just to sum up that first point, right, working on the most interesting technology in the industry comes with its major pros, right? Like if you are somebody that's interested in learning about the latest innovations, or you don't want 2 days to look too similar, you know, I'd say every day was like very interesting, because you'd have to learn something new, and then you would have to think about the market context on how you would message and position the new product or feature and how we differentiate from competitors. So you have to take in a lot of market context on a day-to-day basis, see how that applies to your business, go-to-market strategy, product, right? And then you'd also have to you know, work with the product team to see if, well, you have to work with the product team to understand how these latest innovations would be messaged into our product, and then translate those into, you know, key outcomes or features and benefits to our target customers, right? So that was really fun. But also, you know, it's also really exhausting, because the industry is moving at a breakneck pace, so it can get you can get kind of burnt out, I'd say. I guess when I first started, our company was really, I'd say, they really wanted us to work with our AI tools on a day-to-day basis, right? I was using ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, using all the different tools. So definitely encouraged to do it. I think some other companies prior to working at this AI company, a little bit hesitant or a little bit lack of trust to using these AI tools. Obviously there's a fine balance, right? You don't want to rely on AI to do the thinking for you, which, you know, can happen to a lot of people. And sometimes, you know, you're using these AI tools and you take what it says to be 100% correct without doing your own fact checking, right? Because for anybody that uses AI in their daily workflow, right, usually it hallucinates. So you do need to have some subject matter expertise and taste to understand if the AI is hallucinating or if it's generated wrong output. I found that, you know, when I was using these AI tools, it was really going to get me 80% of the way there, but the last 20% of finishing off to get to 100% would take a little bit more effort, right? But with AI, it really helps you get you going. But to get to that production state, and that was also a big challenge of working at this AI startup, right? A lot of companies are really good at prototyping tools, and getting it to production takes a lot more work. And that was one of the biggest things we were solving as a company at the time there. And then I think that also ties into, you know, your workflow of using AI as a, you know, knowledge worker, right? It's, hey, you can get a pretty great draft prototype, right? But to get it to production toward end state, it takes a little bit more elbow grease to get it across the line. But to make the second part clear, it's basically, you know, working at an AI company, definitely the entire company and teams are encouraged to use AI tools, and it kind of makes it a lot easier to get the easier work done, and it makes it easier to kind of get you to that 80% draft, right? But the funny thing is, I remember working at my company, right, and my manager would get mad at me, or she would just call me out saying like, oh, I think you're using AI too much. And I was like, oh, interesting. Yeah, I guess I used a lot because I felt like we were encouraged to use it. But ultimately, like, there was like a bit of tension that I was using AI, but the point, like the funny point was, or the point of tension was, I also work at an AI startup, AI company, so I feel like we should be using our AI. But there's obviously a fine balance that needs to be had, because you don't want to rely on AI to do all the thinking for you. You still need to have your own taste and judgment, right? So I think that's kind of the main lesson there. And then, yeah, for my last point is, it kind of ties into the first topic I was talking about, working in the AI industry. It's incredibly fast-paced and exciting. There's a lot of change happening every day, but it also caused me to get really burnt out. You know, the strategy would shift on a bi-weekly basis. You know, latest LLMs or latest innovations in the industry would really, you know, change up our go-to-market strategy. It would, you know, force us to repackage certain projects, you know, update the messaging and positioning constantly on the site, which is all things you should be doing as a product marketing manager, right? But the pace at what we did was it changed almost very frequently, where by the time that, you know, something we felt like was working pretty well, it wasn't working anymore, so it would have to be changed. And I think that translated into like I did a lot of learning. I learned a lot in that year time frame of working at a company. Probably maybe some of the most things I've learned in my career in a very short period of time. But it kind of caused me to do a lot of context switching and burning out. And I was working around 8 to 12 hour days. I would always at least work a little bit on Sunday, or maybe a good majority of the day on Sunday, just to get caught up on work for Monday. And then, you know, there'd be days I'd be working till 3 to 4 a.m. I remember I was working on this new go-to-market strategy to try to launch a new product into a new vertical, specifically financial services. And that was a lot of work, and it was incredibly like rewarding because I got to create this new go-to-market strategy, but at the same time, it did cause me to burn out. And then I think around like 9 or 10 months in, I was really starting to feel the burnout. I could see my productivity and like the light in my eyes disappear a little bit. And maybe that's on me, right? Because I was getting paid pretty well, so I wanted to justify my salary, so I was working really hard. And that kind of was a double-edged sword on my part, because it caused me to burn out. And then ultimately when I got laid off around 1 year and like 2 or 3 months in, obviously I was really bummed about it, but a part of me had an immense sense of relief, because frankly I don't know if I could have lasted any longer. And now I've been traveling around the last 2 or 3 months, and I think I'm finally getting over that burnout feeling around the 3-month mark. And I'm finally like starting to think about the next steps of what I want for my career, of going back into the industry as a product marketing manager, or maybe some other adjacent role. But that was my experience of working at a AI startup as a product marketing manager. If you guys like these, you know, these talks about my career and what I did, let me know. I enjoy talking about them, and I'll see you guys in the next video.